Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Well, I'll tell you what, this video is kind of more like a video to bait some people into making videos of their own. Whether they do or not, not sure. But anyhow, the last video I posted really flippantly about building a, what did I say? What did I call it? Dynamic game world, going off the rails into the salt marsh. Um, couple people were talking about it. Like I watched Doomguard and Angel Dridenfoots talk about this quite a bit. And I always like, I always feel like I'm letting the smart kids talk about stuff. I come up with a subject, I toss in the room, and then spin it, set it spinning a little bit, and then watch people that are smarter than I am talk about all this stuff. I think that's kind of cool. Start the discussion and see where it goes. Anyhow, you know, the two of them were talking about the idea that like when you're talking about a sandbox type game, it's more fun to have it be connected. Like, you don't want to have it become this empty sandbox where it's like a fun house or an amusement park where, you've got all these rides, but they're not really connected. They don't really have anything to do with each other. And often when we run sandbox games or played in sandbox games, I'm pretty sure we've all played in a game like this, where there's all these different hooks and all these different adventures and all these things you could do, but they're not really connected to each other. It's just kind of, it's an amusement park. And I remember, I think it's the Frank Menser quote, and I'm going to get it wrong, but he's talking about a sandbox is an area that contains so many railroads that the players don't realize they're being railroaded. Kind of made me think of that for some reason. Probably the amusement park thing. But anyhow, I'm going to talk about, until Doomguard makes his own video on how to tie everything together in a rewarding way rather than an empty sandbox. Um, I'll give you like at least kind of like one of my preferred ways to do it. And so if you're gonna ever play in a Lamentations game, I hopefully get going at some point because I'll probably play in a few different venues in terms of live and maybe Memorex or Hangouts, that sort of thing. But I'll give you the kind of like overview, and so this might be spoilers, but who cares? And it's none of it's very oh wow. It's all very cliche, but it works, But because I'm talking about what's beneath the surface that ties everything together, makes it more like a hydra, more like a web, as opposed to this, just totally disjointed bunch of crap. So, there's humans, there's us, because let's start with like, kind of like low magic, sort of Fantasyland-ish, but not Fantasyland, just kind of low magic, swords and sorcery. Um, Everybody knows there was a race called the Great Race, or the older ones, or whatever the heck you want to call them. And that was a race of, beings. Nobody knows what the heck they looked like, but they were there a long time ago. People talk about them, like the ancient Greeks talked about the gods or the Titans. They're just something everybody accepts existed, but, nobody's ever seen one, except there's ruins that people never go to. There's, little ancient, ancient sites you can kind of see over there. Yeah, nobody, you don't want to go there, but you can see the buildings. It's kind of like, spooky. All right. More pertinent to like what the players might interact with, or recent history, is there's another race, and we'll call them the bad guys, and kind of very, very, very Melnibonian, in a way, like if you're familiar with the Elric Chronicles, Michael Moorcock books, and a little almost like Cylon-ish, like just this race that's pretty much humans, but they kick your ass, and just trounced you, and scary technology, not a technology place, but there's a lot of like a little space thing going on. It's not a space game, it's a fantasy game, but. So, Great Race, spacefarers at some point, way in the, nobody knows that, but, that's part of it. Bad guys, kind of like a created race, from these spacefaring great ones. If you ever read the Daemu trilogy, you might figure this stuff out. Anyhow, or get more of a sense of that sort of thing. So these guys have kicked people's butts in the past, kind of disappeared, nobody knows where they went, and now they're kind of coming back and they're starting to kick butt again. They're sacking some cities next to the cities that the characters are in, or the areas that the characters would start out in. And so, it's kind of like this big blitzkrieg at that point, what the heck's going on? However, what else is going on in the world? Well, there's the obligatory tentacle cult that you might uncover, hear rumblings about. And, okay, let's go with a real, like, obvious Lovecraft kind of connection. Well, that the Great Race, very spacefaring, something like Cthulhu-esque, not Cthulhu, but, the same basic idea. Well, maybe these are other beings and things that are kind of like, sort of, outer space type things, but sort of, or aliens, I'm not saying that right, but it's sort of kind of like almost demons, that kind of like, real Lovecraft sort of vibe. So, tentacle cult. Maybe if you go underground, you find some things that survive. Maybe there'd be vestiges of the Great Race or their, or not their pals. I wouldn't call them their pals, but their peers. Down there in the deep dark, spooky. But on the surface, these two things don't really seem related at all. And then, maybe have some kind of obligatory, like, group in the South. And I don't want to call them gnolls, but it's as good a name as any. But some kind of race of humans that are, less than human people, kind of savages, kind of not quite beast men, but people accept that they're there. They're boogeymen. They're the kind of guys that you scare your kids with and tell them they should brush their teeth and go to bed and not not make a mess and run around the house because the boogeymen will come get you. Well, the boogeymen are in fact getting people and they're stealing people. There's some people aren't sure. Are they stealing them to eat them? Are they using them as some kind of slaves? Well, it turns out they are using them as some kind of slaves because they found something. They found some old stuff, great race type technology down somewhere, and they're using these people to dig it out. They're not going to do it themselves because there's some scary stuff down there. So another little hook, but it's all kind of related. And then as far as like any kind of world, it's going to have some nation versus nation, basic political junk. But a part of that is that every once in a while they discover artifacts. It's what they think they are. I mean, it's tech. They don't know what a ray gun is. They just know something, that's really powerful that could help us. Didn't those bad guys, the Melnibonian type guys, use stuff like this? And oh man, we found somebody like that over here. Well, we could totally kick France's ass. But it's because I'm going to use country names because not the country. Germany finds something like that. Cool. Let's go beat up, France with that. We found a ray gun. Hooray. We're not, it's just this big magic thing. So everything kind of ties together, even though it seems unrelated. Even though people are talking about artifacts, or they're not talking about ray guns. They're talking about tentacle cults or demon worship. That's really these kind of. You get the idea. It's all tied together. On the surface, it can seem totally unrelated. It can seem a bit like an amusement park. However, when the characters explore this kind of stuff, well, they find out, it is kind of like there's something going on here that's more connected. Do they ever really want to unravel this? Can they at the end defeat the big bad? No, no, run. But you can have some kind of little effect on the world, just like you or I in the real world. Can we have some great effect in our local area? Yes, you and I as human beings can do great things. Can we affect the entire outcome of the world right now and make it in our own image? And no. We can do, perhaps we can affect the world at large, over time, and people, history can remember us as great men and women. But if I manage to like all of a sudden, rise to power and crush all mine enemies under my feet and remake the world my image, you guys ought to be paying me a lot to make this channel. But you get the idea. So it's all tied, it's all connected. So, but anyhow, I want to hear Doomguard's version of how he's going to do that, and so that's it. Talk to you later. Maybe I should take over the world. That'd be kind of cool.